And then next, we have Ruairi Carroll
Yes.
telling us about one of the biggest challenges in computer science, parsing text. Please.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ruairi. I think this is my 5th time at DKNOG, and it gets better every year. I want to take some time to thank the PC for organizing this DKNOG. We've had like a relatively long pandemic, the second DKNOG since pandemic kind of lifted, and it's really nice to be back here and see you all in person. So if you could give a round of applause for the PC. So I'm Ruairi. I've been a network engineer for 20-something years. I am now in recovery. I am an SRE. So, I apologize to the PC. I titled the text, or I titled this as boring as possible to see where the threshold was for what's accepted. Sorry. This isn't really something formal. It's more like a cookbook, ideas, recipes. There's a GitHub repo accompaniment that is linked in the slides, I believe. You can see the code there. I have better comments in there. I followed the Google style guide. Thank you, Alan, for bringing that up. So let's get into it. A few phrases first. These are some things you'll be seeing during the talk. It's regular expressions, it's regex. It's kind of a meta language to describe a pattern you're looking for. A parser is basically a way to get, or it describes like how language is put together, like formal text. It needs a lexer. A lexer is basically a way to describe what a word looks like on input. Grammar, combo of both. And a DSL is a domain-specific language. This is just going to be like vendor CLI. We've all been there. We've all been in networking. I mean, there's still devices managed by hand for whatever reason. It is generally regarded as a bad mistake. Sadly, intentions don't fix this. There was very little automation in the past. As we can see from like previous slide by Alan, or previous presentation by Alan, that we have a larger focus on automation in the networking space. And this is a really good step forward. But we're not there yet. And to paraphrase somebody who's a lot smarter than me, database to network is easy. Network to database is very, very hard. So there is a lot of protocols you can use to get structured text from devices. We've seen them all, like netconf, restconf, gRPC. Oh my God, what the barbecue. They're great. I use them at my job. Brilliant, amazing, but there's always the edge case. So, like I was saying, I'm just going to outline some options, have a chat. I mean, if you want to stop me during the presentation and ask questions, please feel free. Save them for the end. I don't mind. Hopefully, somebody in this room gets some benefit from this talk. And that would be really nice if it was the case. So the first strategy is very, very simple. It's just substring matching. It's like, is this phrase in this blob of text? There's not much to talk about really here. It's just pretty straightforward. It's simple and fragile, sadly. Very, very fragile to like white space changes, which vendors actually love to do. So generally wouldn't recommend this, but fast and simple, great. Regular expressions, like I mentioned earlier, it's basically a meta language. You describe what you're looking for in a very like formalized way, and it's great. They're everywhere. Sometimes badly so. It is used as the wrong tool in a lot of cases. It's Perl-esque in that it's write only, you don't read. So once you finish your regex, that's it. Forget it. You're never understanding it again. Has a bad rep. I mean, yeah. You can improve regex with named capture groups, and this is just basically a way to like split up the match or the regex and actually makes it a bit more readable and gives you a bit more functionality. And yes, we know this beauty. Regex is used in places it should really not be, like parsing HTML. TextFSM, this is a project that is supported by Google. I'm not sure if it was created or not in Google. It's like named capture groups on speed. You write a template in a pretty easy to understand language. What's really nifty about TextFSM is you can tell it what command you ran on the device, and it will look up its table for a parser, which is actually kind of cool. And it comes and go in Python. Network to Code very nicely have a very, very large repo of templates, so you don't really have to do a lot of work, and you get structured text out of it. And then the last strategy I'm going to talk about is called Antler 4. And this one is a very heavyweight. You describe your lexer, you describe your grammar, you compile that into a language, so it has multiple targets for output. It will generate Go, Python, C, Java. Like, it is very, very flexible. What you build on top of it is the framework for like parsing your text into like some structure. So, putting it all together, what I'm talking about, I mentioned a bunch of things. Hopefully, something's going to be useful here. So, let's go and take a quick example of how to build vendor-neutral code. And this is a wonderful follow-on from the previous presentation, because I am just about to make all the mistakes that Alan told me not to make. Why am I doing this? Like I said, I am an SRE now. In my life as a network engineer, I never really got shown how to build these things, despite being curious. So I decided to tell you guys. And hopefully, like I said, we'll get something good from it. So very quick setup. I'm going to use ABC, which is in the Python base library. It is called abstract base class. It's a way to describe what the functions are going to look like. We're going to implement one function for everything I've mentioned. And code is on GitHub if GitHub is up and accessible via v6. Sorry. Quick sketch of the API. Like I said, we take 5 interactions, sketch it out. There's no real rhyme or reason other than it was easy to write these functions. Go straight to the first one, or sorry, go straight to ABC. So like I said, it's pretty straightforward. You import ABC, you inherit it, your class from ABC, as you can see there. And then every method you want to be configured will be tagged with the decorator of abstract method. Now this is important to note because you have to implement every function that you have tagged as an abstract method. Getting started with the vendor neutral code, just import your base class, inherit it, and start writing. So, like I said, first substring match is pretty straightforward. I mean, there's not a lot to say. Just is a string in a string. And this works. As you can see, we're returning a Boolean here to see if the user's configured. It's fragile. It can break. But for pure ease of use, it's very straightforward. Next one is fetch the model name, and this is where we start to get regex and how pretty they are. You can see here I'm doing a group match on 2 strings, an MX or PTX, followed by numbers, 0 to 9, repeated multiple times. And then it's just a matter of searching, and you take the first group match. Next one is a description of the running version. You can see here I've broken the regex into multi-line. There's groups, so it is more readable. And the nifty thing here is the function on the bottom I'm calling groupDict will return you a dictionary where key is the group name and value is the match. So it's quite nice to build quite rapidly. fetchARPTable, I mean, like I was saying, TextFSM is pretty cool where it'll auto map. It's the command you've run to a template directory. You can see the call there with CLI table, and it's imported from TextFSM itself. And then you just say, there's my output. There's the attributes of what I've run, basically, and off you go. It will return an iterable, and that has to be iterated on to create something a bit more structured for you. The last one strategy I mentioned is Antler 4. This, like I said, is a bit heavy. A few things to note here that is important is the grammar at the top. That has to be the same file name. So that has to end in G4. So this has to be in a file called ISISAdjacency.g4. Reading it bottom up, you build fragments, and then you create parser rules, and you tell it what you're looking for. And here you can see like interfaces just like AE followed by a number, followed by a dot, followed by a number. For the sake of this, I simplified to only match aggregated interfaces. And then you can see on the top line is truncated, but that would be a full line of what I'm expecting. A bit more legwork to get set up here, but the important thing to really match is once you have the parser created, dot line has to correspond with the second line there, the grammar rule. So that's how you call it. Once you have that set up, then you just iterate on the children that's matched and you extract them. Pretty straightforward. Build up your data structure yourself from the text and off you go. And then, as you can see, pretty straightforward. So, what did we learn? Do we have speaker notes? Sorry. You never know what you're going to expect as a input on your device. You're going to make mistakes. It's fine. You should give yourself enough time to like evaluate and think, am I doing the right thing if I'm texting or parsing text? You hopefully will have learned something from this, and up is my time here because I went to this slide like too fast, sorry. Anyone got any questions? Hopefully you do.
Yeah. What would you consider, because you mentioned using Antler is great and it's very flexible, but there is a certain level of like overhead associated with it, or there's a certain level of complexity associated with it. Where would you say your line lies, right? Like when do you think like, okay, I can use, I'll hate myself and I'll use a regular expression for this. I hate myself a tiny bit less, so I'll use TextFSM. And you know, like I'm a compiler engineer, therefore everything is Antler. Like where does the line kind of lie?
It's hard. I mean, like, it's a non-answer, sorry. The reason I was recently convinced to move from regex to Antler was when I realized that the code was fragile. And what I mean by fragile was it was unsupportable, it was unreadable. Regex were very restrictive in their ability to match things. I looked at other strategies for parsing text input from a user. Antler seemed like a kind of nice balance between describing the grammar and reducing the overhead. So I actually replaced, I think it was 300 lines of regex with about 100 lines of Go with Antler, and that was obviously a net benefit, and it's brought way more functionality and features to me. But you are correct, it is heavy. It might not be for everything, but when you get down to parsing like a lot of regexes, I would suggest that maybe you're doing the wrong thing. Does anyone else have any questions, comments, even about general automation and networking?
Because look, we still have 15 minutes until the break. So we need to make use of this time. Oh, there's a question in the corner there. See, when I say these magic words, like questions come in.
My name is Arman. I'm from Mila in Iceland. So what about strategies rolled around either parsing text or just parsing the XML coming from netconf into models instead of going just by the running config? Is asking the device for the structured text. Is that something?
If I understand what you're asking me, is like, why don't I focus on like the using netconf and just serializing via lib?
Not
XML?
why you don't, just have you thought of it, or
Yes.
have you done it?
Yes.
What's your experience? Because I'm basically dealing with what you've been describing.
Yep.
Pros and cons of it, and then just figuring my next steps.
The library for XML in Python is quite good. It's pretty flexible. I would recommend just getting a quick wrapper class first, where you give it a blob of text and you get an element tree back. I would suggest looking at, I forgot the name of it right now, but there is not a vulnerability, but a failure in the parser, in the default element tree parser that's suggested. If you remind me soon, I'll get the correct name for you. Just need to have a quick look up at it. Avoid using optional return types in Python. Strongly type, by the way, as well. You see the code examples I have, I always use return hints. It can get quite frustrating if you build a lot of code without typing, because it assumes everything's an any and you don't know what you're dealing with. There's another part of Python called a, sorry, name's escaping me again. I use it a lot. It's like a named tuple, but not. Data class, yes, thank you. I would create a data class when you get to serialize whatever you are from XML, and I would map the commands, but in a vendor neutral way. So, okay, there's a concept of ambiguity. So if I get a dict passed to me in a function, I don't know what's in there. It's just a blob of text. But with data class, you get typed and you reduce the ambiguity, so you reduce your blast radius for issues. The optional part I was talking about, avoid that because you have to check for none all the time. You will enter into a situation where you have runtime errors. You want to minimize that where possible, especially dealing with text. So it means like check, 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 and use a data class so that you know what's in there. I would avoid, from professional experience, I would avoid pulling the rib out of a root reflector via XML. I believe I got a 64 gig server to OOM on that one. It took over an hour as well, by the way. So that maybe not the best.
Microphone, because we can't hear you back here.
Sorry. I'm also thinking about these open config templates, trying to fit my data into them straight from the parser. So especially because these users you've been talking about, soon I'll be delivering this data to them. So I want it to be in an open standard, not in that standard that our provider sort of gives us. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So parsing from the XML straight to the templates is that.
Yeah, I mean,
have
if
you
it
tried
reduces
that?
the ambiguity, if it reduces the ambiguity, that definitely do it. I would aim or lean more towards data classes because then I can have a vendor neutral representation and then serialize it later on. But it's one of those situations where there's no right, no wrong answer, just late night debugging sessions because you did pick the wrong option. Always pick the wrong option. Any other questions?
I don't see any. Well, go. Oh, there we go.
Morten from SmartShare again. So in lack of relevant questions, I'll pose a creative question. What's your favorite data format? If it's not text formatted, is it XML or JSON or what's your favorite?
I can tell you which one I dislike the most. And that is like literally a combination between like either JSON or YAML. I think XML has some good things going for it in the base spec, like a XPath. It is relatively heavy. Because of my day job, I have my mind control chip in, so I have to say protobufs are obviously the most superior data format, and gRPC is the best protocol out there.
Okay, thanks.
No other questions? Coming? Going? Well, thank you very much, Rory. Then,
Thank
if
you
we
all.
don't have any questions,